yes, dear, we're making more progress now. Yes, dear, we're making more progress now. Yes, dear, we're making more progress now. Still have a long way to go. They promised to bring us more revenue and quality. Promised to bring us more revenue and quality. Promised to bring us more revenue and quality. Instead is now on its way. Yes, dear, we're making more progress now. Yes, dear, we're making more progress now. Yes, dear, we're making more progress now. Selectmen will help us all out. They promise to bring us more revenue and quality. Promise to bring us more revenue and quality. Promise to bring us more revenue and quality. Winchester's now on its way.
Seems to be a Hello everybody, this is Brian O'Haron back again with Planning for Success. Happy to be here. Today I have kind of a special introduction to the program. I want to talk about how entrepreneurial businessmen think. I have many reasons for that, which I'll explain in a minute. But first, I want to introduce my guest today. On the wall you should see a picture of my old friend, classmate Charlie Tidwell, the world champion sprinter. He had held 4 world records in the 100-yard dash, 220, was a 220-yard hurdler. He was on all the relay teams, and at the time that I knew him, he was the fastest man in the world before Bob Hayes. God rest your soul, Charlie. Charlie's no longer with us. But I knew him when I was at Kansas. He was on the Kansas team, and he was an excellent sprinter, the best in the world. I have them there for a very good reason today, because I want to talk about one of the things that Charlie taught me when I knew him. Charlie said that you need to get off the blocks fast and run like heck until you reach the finish line. That's one of the things that the entrepreneurs are doing in our town now. Thought it quite appropriate that Charlie be with us for a little while today, because our people are getting off the blocks fast and they're going to run like heck until they get to the finish line. We will get the revenue into town eventually. It'll take quite a while, but we will get there. This isn't going to be a 100-yard dash. It could be more like the 10,000-meter run that I tell you that Billy Mills won in the Olympics, but we're going to get moving. After that, you'll see another picture, the old picture I used once before, but all the original entrepreneurs that built this town and also had to get off the blocks fast and run rapidly. So as I watch the selectmen meetings now, I see and predicted in my past shows way back in the earlier days that the stratification between the businessmen and the non-business people at the selectmen meeting. It was very obvious in the last selectmen meeting, and there's a reason for that. That's why I was pushing all along on my shows for all businessmen to run our business when the election happened. Now, we didn't get all businessmen. We got 5 businessmen, We got one educator, and we have one other person who is, I don't know whether will be a businessman or not, but we'll see. Time will tell there. He's off to a good start, but I don't really know if he can keep up with these 5 businessmen. Time will tell that. For one reason or another, we didn't get to 7 businessmen. I'm still hoping we do next time around in 2 years when we have another election, because I think it's very important. Seeing the frustration of the minority at the meetings, I decided to write this next few slides for this program. This is an attempt to help others in town understand that this will not be cured overnight, this frustration, if ever. But we must move on, because there are many decisions that the non-businessmen may not be qualified to understand and may not be able to contribute to in a timely and meaningful way. And we see a little bit of that now in the frustration. Hence the them and us feeling that we get feedback from around town. Why is there a them and us feeling here? Why are the businessmen so strong? And why aren't the other people included more in a lot of the decision making? I hope what I'm going to say today helps. Successful entrepreneurial businessmen, and what you see here with these 5 businessmen is you see, at least among most of them, you see survival of the fittest. That's our friend Darwin again. These are people who made it. They're the best. Not everybody makes it. It's a very, very high dropout rate when people start small businesses and entrepreneurs start businesses. It's up in a 90% or so of businesses that start in America don't succeed. These people have succeeded, and they are successful entrepreneurial businessmen. And successful entrepreneurial businessmen know, like Charlie did, that you have to get started fast and run like heck until you reach your goal. If you don't do that, you might not succeed and you might not stay in business. So it's very important. So successful entrepreneurs, and ours are all successful, do not think like most normal organizational experienced people. They don't think like people who are brought up in bureaucracies. They don't think like people who are brought up in large organizations that run by a different set of rules and procedures. They don't really want to get caught in that trap. What they want to do is recreate the approach that made them successful and that they know works. Businessmen are more likely to size up a job requirement, for example, say the town manager or any other job, quickly, and then approach other successful people that they know and try to convince them to join their organization or for them to recommend someone else that they know and trust for the job, if necessary, or to be a subcontractor, right? So that's how they do it. They don't run to the newspapers or to search organizations, or they don't plan a big process. What they do is they go and they ask people, and they try to rely on people they know and that they know the experience and that have probably worked with before, and then they will try to attract that person. They often have to employ them for short periods of time, seasonal or by the job even. So they are willing to remunerate them when necessary more than, say, the going rate. You're always careful, of course, to watch their costs, because they need to break even at least to keep alive. They're willing to do what they have to do, what's necessary to attract and keep good people. And they will always go out of their way, when they have a good person, to keep that person and to incent the person and to create the environment where the person can be successful. They also have to encourage them to take difficult jobs, or encourage them to devote more time and take more risk. This goes on every day in their businesses. And sometimes they have to not keep people. If the people aren't performing or aren't comfortable and aren't helping out, then they can't stay. If this approach does not bear fruit, then they will network. We call it networking in business. What you do is you start spreading the word everywhere, the type of person you're looking for, and you try to rely on personal references more than anything else. And you do that from a professional in an attempt to find an exceptional person. For all sorts of reasons, the last thing that they want to do is advertise, use the internet. A lot of these people don't use the internet at all for many things. It is a good tool, we know that. And in some professions, especially in large bureaucracies and organizations, it's absolutely essential. But in a lot of businesses, entrepreneurial business, not necessary at all. So you don't necessarily have to be that literate on a computer in many types of businesses. You certainly don't want to employ a search firm unless you have to. That's a long and drawn out. And that's usually done for a real exceptional type at the top of large companies or places where you really want some exceptional criteria that you can't get through networking very easily. And search firms take years sometimes to find the right people for the right job. Successful entrepreneurs are good judges of people, very good judges of people. They have honed their skills to be able to do that. The unsuccessful ones are the 90% or so that aren't in business anymore. They didn't develop these skills. And they're willing to take a certain amount of risk when they employ people. We know now that when we employ our new town manager, there will be risk involved. He may not have a job, or she may not have a job for much longer than a few months. Then again, they may. So there is risk involved, and whoever does apply must understand that, and all the cards must be on the table. But these entrepreneurs are used to working that way, so it's not a big problem for them. They're usually pretty good at sizing up people. It's one of the skills that they develop over the years and have developed. These types of entrepreneurial business managers are usually result-oriented. They have to be. And they're used to financing things with their own money. That's very important. That doesn't happen in big bureaucracies. That doesn't happen in organizations where you might be where the #1 union in the country is involved. These people put up their own money or money of other people that are their investors, and they have to be very diligent with the use of that money. They're used to financing things with their own money or are entrusted with other people's money, so they learn to judge quality. They have to learn to judge quality, experience, and progress fast. They know that quality and time is money. If they make a mistake, which they often do, everybody makes a lot of mistakes. I once talked about how Ted Williams only batted .444 or so. They know they're going to make mistakes because they're moving fast. They need to move fast, like Charlie says. You got to run. And they're quick to rectify any situation because they'll set up a mechanism for finding out what the problems are and then fixing them. That's the visibility they employ and the willingness to listen and correct themselves. And they've already shown some examples of that. They're not perfect. They've gotten some feedback from people and from other selectmen, and they are showing signs of being able to as I said before on previous programs, businessmen do not like surprises. They don't want any surprises. They want to know everything. We had an example of a surprise this week where the people from the parts of town here didn't have a contract since last June. They were working without a contract since last June, and it wasn't that well known at the selectman level, at least to the new selectmen. Once they found out about it, they took immediate action. It'll take a while to resolve the problems, I'm sure, but it will be done. It'll be done rapidly, and decisions will be made. They like visibility. Entrepreneurs love visibility because that's how they find out what's going on, and that's how they change their decision making. When they find out that things going right, that's great. If they're not, they got to fix it. If they don't fix it, then they're out of business. It's their time and money. They want to deal with facts, as I said last week. Facts are very important. They need facts, not supposition. So you must understand that when you deal with these businessmen, or when you see them in the selectmen meeting, they must have the facts. They're not very happy when they find out things are not factual. Not saying they don't make the odd mistake with the facts themselves, or even myself. Well, everybody is human. We all make mistakes. And that's why I always say on this program, if you find out I'm making a mistake or I said the wrong thing, then correct me through the email or through the post office box, and then I'll come on the program and fix it. People often say to me, Brian, you admit your mistakes on there. Everybody thinks you're making mistakes all the time. I say, well, I'm going pretty fast here. Spend a lot of time every week preparing for this, and I do make mistakes, but I do try to correct them when I'm wrong. Often, when a businessman makes a mistake, if he doesn't have the visibility, he doesn't make a decision, he doesn't correct it, it's very costly, and they often pay dearly for their mistakes. So they are much more diligent afterward as they learn from their mistakes as well as their successes. They are human. Because of all this, they like to deal with well-experienced, reliable people and will keep responsible employees as long as they can. When people do leave for one reason or another, their organization, they try not to burn any bridges, as they may need the person again in the future, and vice versa. Often when people go their way, they do better than they did when they were here. And often they come back. This new town manager, the fellow who's applied to be the new town manager, may not be, but he's applied, he was here before. And for one reason or another, he didn't stay. I think it was because at the time, he was in a position where he couldn't become a resident. So he didn't stay. But he was here before, and he may come back again, and he may not. Entrepreneurs, although they learn from the past, do not like to dwell on the past, but they like to deal in the present and the future. Placing blame on past employees and past boards and past people that used to be chairman of the boards and all that, it's not their style. We try not to do that. Again, once in a while, they will make a mistake. But in general, they're looking forward. They want to get to the next goal, not try to relive the past. Entrepreneurs do not rely on committees and commissions. They use committees and commissions, and they respect them for what they do. But they don't rely on them, especially large committees and commissions. They prefer to place responsibility on people, on the line management. Saw some of that this week, again, where they're reaffirming that we want the responsibility to be with the town manager. I'm going to talk a bit more about that during the program, but they prefer to place the responsibility on people and hold them accountable. I mentioned that last week, that hey, people want responsibility. They want the responsible jobs, and they have them. But then they have to accept the accountability. So we have to make sure that people are given the responsibility, and then they're held accountable for decisions. And they don't try to blame those decisions on everybody else around them. That is how they grow people. Remember, I mentioned on a previous show that responsibility is fertilizer. That's how people grow. If you're trying to learn an instrument, you have to practice, and that's how you grow. They grow people, and it grows organizations. That's how they can move fast to obtain quicker results. Businessmen like to get results. They love results. They don't like to fail. They're not losers. They want to win. And this fuels them. They don't like to waste time with unnecessary detail. That's what I called in previous shows bicycle shedding. They don't want to waste time with unnecessary detail. What they want is the bottom line. Just give them the bottom line. They're used to working with bottom lines. If they want to know more, they will ask specific questions. They do not like to deal with generalities. No presentations, please. Just a one-page summary. The other night we had a presentation, I think it lasted an hour. It was introduced for 5 or 10 minutes. It was going to last 10 or 15 minutes. And it went on for an hour or more. And in my opinion, it wasn't even a policy type thing. It should have been done with the town manager outside of the select meetings, in my opinion. What the businessmen want to see is a one-page summary, if not a one-sentence or two-sentence summary, at the selectmen meeting, and they want to know what the bottom line is. And then they will ask questions. And then they should move the question and come to a vote as soon as possible. Entrepreneurs do not shrink from decision making. They are excellent decision makers. They're always trying to make decisions themselves or get people to make decisions, get all their direct reports to make decisions, get all the people in the organization to make decisions. They want that to happen. They do not try to pawn decision making off onto someone else when it should be their decision, or pawn it off onto a committee, or pawn it off onto a commission. They'll make decisions when they are presented with a need for the same, and will know that they may have to correct a percentage of them along the way, so the mechanisms need to be there for that management by exception when the feedback is given to them. Entrepreneurs like to keep things moving forward with minimal calculated risk. There's always risk involved, but we should try to make it minimal at all times. That's one of the reasons that they prefer evolutionary approaches rather than revolutionary, because it's quicker to see what's happening and to see if it's going in the right direction and to fix any problems as you go along. And lastly, I'd like to say here in this particular section that businessmen, especially entrepreneurs, are usually not crybabies, and they don't tolerate crybabies very well. They are not paranoid. They do not think that any time something is mentioned in a selectman meeting that it's a criticism against them or it is negative feedback directed towards them as individuals. And they don't take comments as being, unless they are specifically directed, they don't take them personally. They look for feedback and use it as a tool to improve their behavior and that of their organization. Now, I hope this information that I just gave you and talked to you about will help you to understand the selectmen when you watch a selectmen's meeting. It will help you to understand why it is so difficult for them to have a harmonious relationship throughout the whole group of selectmen. It's difficult for the minority because they don't have the same experiences as the majority, and it's difficult for the majority because they grew up in a different environment than the minority in this particular case. So it's always going to be a communication. And I did say when we were talking before the election that we had all businessmen, then they would all be able to communicate properly and well. And they wouldn't be looking for why do these people do things differently than we did things in the last group of selectmen. We did things differently before because we had people with different experiences. And as long as we have the businessmen in the majority, they will be trying to employ the techniques. That's why we elected them. We elected them because they have this approach, because they are this way, because they can help us get out of intensive care. So please take that into consideration. I do get a lot of people in town say, Brian, why don't they take more time? Why don't they go slower? Why don't they include everybody in all their decisions? And I say, well, you know, there's just some times when you're in intensive care, when you got to get on with things and you got to keep moving. And that's what's happening now. You're watching it before your very eyes, and every week I will show you some examples where these things happen and try to educate you all so that the next time when you vote, you will vote, hopefully, for more businessmen.